What's going on? It's your boy Nate Be Lit. Nate really does be lit, and we are back again with another. I was about to say pre-week market outlook, but it's very Wednesday-ish right now. It's like 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, so I'm gonna call it the midweek outlook this week, right? So I'm gonna get straight into it because it's late, and I do not want to go to bed too late tonight because I've got to be up early in the morning. So first things first, what is going on this week? So this week, most important stuff is obviously the BOJ speech, which happened this morning, early hours, where he basically spoke about, basically, Governor Ueda basically spoke about his concerns about inflation. Obviously, inflation's been going higher. Obviously, that means interest rates are yet to go higher at some point, maybe the next reading, who knows. Now, if we do get that, we will continue to be, well, we will flip around to being bullish on the yen because as of the past couple of weeks, we've kind of changed in terms of market cycle. However, fundamentally, we are still bullish. Why? Because obviously CPI, well, inflation is coming higher, number one. And number two, they were obviously increasing the rates. Now, the rates are being held at the moment, which is why I'm so interested in what's been going on with the inflation numbers. And obviously, inflation as of last week, Thursday or Friday, the national core CPI actually ticked up. I can't remember the exact numbers, but you guys can check that on Forex Factory as well. Go back to last week, last week Thursday, I think it was. Now, obviously for the yen, I'm more on the bullish side, but obviously we'll get into the charts and I'll explain to you why that is as well. This week we've also got CPI for the Australian dollar, which may or may not come out lower. If it does, I mean, I'm still going to be bearish on the Australian dollar as of current anyway, just because obviously their most of their income comes from export with China, and obviously China's in not the best financial position right now. So because of that, Australia obviously via domino effects is obviously in a similar sort of situation. On top of that, previous inflation numbers were obviously coming down. We went from 2.5 to 2.4. We stayed at 2.4. Forecast, which I don't really care about, is showing 2.3. Interest rates for the Australian dollar have been coming down as well. So I'm bearish on the dollar. So bearish on the Australian dollar, should I say. However, I am bearish on the dollar as well, which we're going to speak about. Obviously, we've got New Zealand dollar interest rates as well coming out. We've got FOMC meeting minutes on the US dollar, which is extremely important, which I'm going to definitely be locked in on as well. So this is a Wednesday, 7 p.m. So I'm going to be locked in on that. You can find that if you click on Bloomberg Live, type in Bloomberg Live on YouTube at 7 p.m., you will be able to find that. So I would highly recommend, if you do study fundamentals, which I recommend everybody do, then yeah, you want to be watching that on Wednesday, right? We've also got unemployment claims, which unless it gives a crazy reading, I'm not really going to be too fussed about. Most importantly, though, this week we've got core PCE, which is obviously a measure of inflation that is mostly favored by the Fed. You've got different readings for inflation, and PCE obviously being their most preferred one out of the three. So of course that's going to be highly important as well. If that does come lower, it's just going to mean more bearishness for the dollar. We know that we are bearish on the dollar. Why? Because number one, interest rates have been going lower. Obviously it's been held at the moment, but obviously if we look at the overall trend, it's been held now. But overall, right now we are currently bearish. They've been cutting the rates since last year September, and obviously with it lower rates means obviously a weaker dollar, right? We also know that that inflation readings rather have been coming lower as well, which is also signs for bearishness on the dollar. We have Mr. Orange Man, aka Mr. Donald Trump, in office. If you backtest obviously what Republicans and Democrats do to the dollar, you will find that Trump's party is obviously quite bearish for the dollar. So that is obviously in effect as well. And obviously from a market cycle perspective, which we're going to go through very shortly, we are bearish as well. So moving over to the charts, let's quickly flick over to the dollar very quickly. So dollar bill, y'all. All right. So with the dollar, on a higher time frame perspective, we can see that we are in a bearish market cycle. We've distributed, well, even if we go to the monthly, we've distributed out of previous supply, previous redistribution where, we had, if you trade ICT, you know, you probably know about institutional candles. Now, Wyckoff is just more in detail version of that, but you can see, you know, you have your buy to sell, because we know institutions need to sell to buy, and obviously buy to sell as well. So, you know, we had that. Price is obviously broken a previous low, come back into obviously supply. I don't trade ICT, by the way, but I did study him a little while back before I found sense. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, obviously, what's it called? Um, so yeah, we know that we're bearish on the dollar because we've reacted out of, you know, the area of supply, if you will, i.e. the 80%. And obviously we've distributed. So if I come down to a lower time frame now, you know, we can see that we've distributed and then we've redistributed. So a distribution plus a redistribution is obviously a bearish market cycle. So I'm just following that bearish market cycle to the downside, right? So as of current, you know, on the intraday time frame, you know, we've obviously broken this low, and this was the previous redistribution that caused this low to get broken, right? So price has obviously tried to come into that. It's attempted to come to the 50%, and then we ended up, if I come down to a lower time frame, we ended up breaking, you know, the market cycle that, you know, was bringing us up to the 50%. Well, up to try and come to the 50%. So we ended up breaking the market cycle down here, and obviously continue to go lower. We redistributed again. So I'm just waiting for price to come into this area in here. Now, if we get signs of sellers, i.e. a distribution, then obviously that's going to mean for me that I should really be looking at sells. If everything from a fundamental perspective is bearish, and from a technical perspective, higher time frame, intraday time frame, we are bearish as well. Everything's telling me to be selling. You know, I'm not really looking for signs of bias to come in. You know, because there's just no reason for that to happen. So, not to say that it can't happen, but you know, probabilities will be against me if I try and buy against the market that sellers are driving. You know, it's like me trying to swim against the current. You can do it for a little while, but if you do that over time, you're going to find yourself, you know, drowning and losing. You know, so yeah, I'm not going to do the same thing, you know, with regards to these charts. So for me, I'm going to be looking to sell in here. If price does end up coming higher and this ends up turning into a reaccumulation, then I'll be looking at up here for price to obviously reverse and come back down. Right? Do I want to see that? Ideally, no. You know, if we can get something tomorrow, obviously it's Tuesday night now, so if we can get something on Wednesday, that would be great. If not, obviously I'm gonna act accordingly. I'm not a goddamn nitty that needs to take a trade every every 2 minutes, right? So obviously, for those of you that don't know, Euro USD and GBP USD are inverse to the dollar. So now that we look to the dollar, we can kind of have an understanding as to what is going to happen with Euro USD and GBP USD. So I'm just looking at buyers on Euro USD, potentially from this area that we're currently in. Now I'm a little bit apprehensive to buy from here unless we get obviously a clean piece of evidence that buyers are coming in. If we see an accumulation build out in here at the same time as prices distributing on the dollar, then I will take a look at this. Outside of that, I'm going to be predominantly focused on what the dollar's doing. So if the dollar is not distributing out of that previous supply area that I just showed you, I'm not really going to be looking to buy this because I know that this is driven by the dollar. So rather than looking at what Euro USD is doing, I'm going to be looking at what the dollar's doing. So if we can get those two things happen at the same time, i.e. the accumulation on here and the distribution on the dollar index, then obviously that would be great. And I'll be looking to take some buys from here. If not, then I'll just wait for price to continue making its way up and I'll wait for a reaccumulation. You know, the easiest way I can explain this, a good analogy is as follows, right? If you're going on a date, you know, you're going to meet your date at the restaurant that you guys are going to eat at and you're taking the train there. If you miss the train, what are you going to do? You're going to sulk and, you know, throw a hissy fit and go home? Nah, you're just going to wait for the next train. So I'll just do exactly the same thing with this, you know? So moving on from this, we've got obviously GBP USD. Now, right now, it's sitting inside of a very aggressive point of interest, right? Now, the point of interest is obviously important, but obviously, if I don't see what I need to see inside said point of interest, then I'm not going to take this trade at all. So I can see that price has obviously accumulated and come back into it. So it's kind of me playing this order flow, if you will, you know, which is not the highest probability, but I will take a look in here and see, you know, if price accumulates in here at the same time as DXY is distributing from that area I just showed you guys earlier on the dollar, then obviously I'll have a look at taking something inside of this or based off of this point of interest. Failing that, I want to see price make its way a little bit lower. So if the dollar does continue going up higher, like I was just showing you, then we could look at price coming into, these sort of areas down here, or worst case, even lower than that down here. Because if I zoom out and go on a higher time frame, technically this reaccumulation here is pretty damn big when you compare it to this one and this one up here. And that means that, more money has gone into this. So it will be more worth it for them to mitigate these areas. Now, does that mean they have to? No, because they may find the amount of buy orders that they need to fulfill either in this area or in this area. But failing that, then obviously I can be looking at this area down here, because we know that all the institutions need to do, all they want to do, their aim is to fill orders. And obviously if they don't have orders, if they're not able to fill orders in a certain area, they'll bring price lower or higher to do so, right? So that is GU and EU. Now USD CAD, from a fundamental perspective, the Canadian dollar is obviously driving this pair, and obviously Canadian dollar as of current, they were obviously reducing their rates for a while, but rates have been held, and obviously inflation is going up, and when inflation goes up, obviously that means that interest rates usually will follow. Now it doesn't mean, right, inflation starts to go up today, interest rates are going to go up tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that, right? So obviously we need to wait for more data to come out. However, for the data that we have as of current, if I just step out into the higher time frame again, like I can see that fundamentally we are obviously bullish on the Canadian dollar, and this trades against the Canadian dollar. So I'm going to be looking to sell this, right? So from a fundamental perspective, we're bearish, and the technicals are lining up with the fundamentals. So this is my previous redistribution. So if price comes into 50% and above, i.e., premium pricing, then I will look to sell from this area up here. This is all I've really got for USD CAD, if I'm being very honest. However, I'm aware that we've got, this demand down here, but if we just simply zoom out, we can see that we've had a massive distribution. Well, we're in the middle of a distribution forming out of supply, i.e. premium pricing, right? So it makes sense for price to continue coming lower from here, coupled up with the fact that obviously fundamentally we're bearish on this pair as well. It does make sense for us to be on the sell side of this. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. One thing that I always recommend for people to do is not look at what you think the market is going to do, but just look at what the market is doing and just follow it. It's like a language. If your girlfriend telling you no, you just listen, and you just don't progress further, if you know what I'm talking about, right? So probably not the best example, but you guys get what I mean, right? Now, obviously, yeah, so on USD CAD, that's basically what I'm looking at. USD JPY, so I did say I was going to talk about this earlier. So USD JPY right now, obviously we've broken this low. However, I'm looking at the Japanese yen futures, right? So obviously with the Japanese yen futures, that is, the raw data on what the yen is doing, and the yen actually hasn't broken this higher. This trades opposite to USD JPY, of course, right? So we haven't broken this high. However, but because of the fundamentals, I'm more inclined to waiting for price to break this high if it's going to do it. Now, I don't really want to be selling from here right now just because of obviously the fundamentals. I know some people may want to or may do it, but for me, I can only trade based off of what my understanding is telling me right now. Because we are bullish from a fundamental perspective, they've held the rates. The Bank of Japan has obviously held the rates. However, inflation is obviously ticking up. I was reading something yesterday or the day before about the reason why inflation has obviously come up for Japan is just down to the fact that, well, not just down, but one of the main reasons was because of the increase of food prices. I heard that the rice prices are like almost doubled, which is effing ridiculous. So yeah, if the inflation rates are coming higher, it doesn't really make much sense for me to look, to try and go against that. I'd rather wait and see if we can break this high. If we do, then I'll continue to play buys. From a higher time frame perspective, we are we are, very bullish. We've distributed, prices obviously made its way lower, and we've accumulated. And obviously, if we're going to continue to be bullish, then I'd like to see this high get taken out, right? So you guys can hear my front door. I don't know what my wife is doing over there, but yeah, what's it called? So moving on, I would like to see. Yeah, I'm kind of just waiting right now. You can have a look and see that USD JPY is on my medium priority list right now, just because I'm a little bit unsure what to do with this. And if a chart is not clean, cuz you better just change that screen, cuz. So yeah, I'm leaving USD JPYB for now until I've got some more clarity on this thing personally, right? So moving on from USD JPY, gold. Obviously, we've been going absolutely crazy with gold. Our gold has just been skyrocketing. So we're having a bit of a retracement right now. Now what's been taking place on gold is that obviously we were bullish. We still are bullish, of course, but we were bullish on a higher time frame. Obviously, this was my previous reaccumulation price. Obviously, came up, broke below it, right? So that, to me, I'm kind of looking at this as my distribution. We've obviously come lower. Now I was looking at this as a distribution and looking at this as a redistribution. Now I was looking at this as the next redistribution, but obviously we've come lower. Now we've broken it, right? So now that we've broken it, I'm kind of looking at, being more on the buyer side again. Not only did we accumulate by breaking obviously that previous redistribution, but we also reaccumulated as well and confirmed a new high. Now we've come back into discounted pricing to 50% and below, and we are on the lower time frame. Now, by the way, ignore this here. This is just an area I was looking at to see if I could take a limit straight off of this. But yeah, no way am I looking to do that. I want to wait for price to come in and give me an accumulation. On the actual gold chart, this is gold futures, but on the actual gold chart, stop loss is way too big. And obviously that's what I would actually, place my trades on, if that makes sense. So obviously, if I come down into this time frame, zoom in a little bit, I can see that buyers have been coming in. We're seeing buyer drives coming into the market. Look at how slow price made its way lower, and then bam, we had a massive strength candle. Same thing is here as well. So, and obviously we've seen more buy orders coming as well. We've had a manipulation. So and we've confirmed this accumulation by technically breaking this higher. So I want to see if we can get price to come a bit lower and give some signs of more buyers coming in on the seconds time frame. If we can get that, then I'll be more than happy to take this trade. If not, I'll wait for the reaccumulation and play that instead. That's what I'm looking at for gold. I'm fully on the buyer side. Target wise, I'm going to be targeting these highs. So I'm trying to swing it. Obviously, I'm not going to be holding my full volume up until this high. I've spoken to you guys about that on my YouTube before. So I'll be taking partials on the way up. But if we can get some buys in this area, I will be definitely looking to do that. Now, in regards to silver, this just looks rubbish to me, bro. I'll be real, man. I'll be so real. Like, bro, yes, we've confirmed the reaccumulation. Reaccumulated. We've confirmed the reaccumulation, but I want to see price maybe make its way lower and maybe give a reaction from down here. Now, I do see that obviously because gold and silver, they don't correlate one to one, of course, but they are, correlating assets, if you will, right? So as we can see, gold is reacting out of, a previous point of interest. It's coming to the 50/80. I can see that silver already has come into the 50% and reacted. So either I want to see price come into the 80%, given accumulation and head higher, or I would like to see, well, that's all I really want to see, really, if I'm being honest. Outside of that, if we break this high, then I'll look to play, the 50 and 80, the demand area of this previous reaccumulation. And that's all I'm going to be looking at for these precious metals, if I'm going to be honest. I was looking at Euro Pound earlier today as well. Not so much to take an entry, but I just wanted to see what if we were seeing evidence of buyers coming in. Now, what we've done is obviously, we were bearish, we were distribute. Well, let me even come out into a higher time frame very quickly. We obviously were reaccumulating. We're in the midst of potentially another reaccumulation, but we have confirmed the reaccumulation. So the market cycle is telling me that we are bullish. You know, this high would be ideally the next target, right? We accumulated down here, we distributed, we've taken out some, some liquidity to the downside, and obviously we ended up breaking, some order flow down. We accumulated down here, reaccumulated, and obviously, we made our way higher. And we weren't, not only did we make our way higher and obviously confirm a bullish market cycle, but we were also unable to break this low as well. Does that mean we are not going to break it? No. But if we've broken the most previous order flow, or the most previous market cycle, if you will, by breaking this high. So, and we accumulated and we ended up doing that. So that's cause and effect, right? So now that we've broken this high, I want to see if we can see some buyers come in. Now I'm only taking buyers if I see evidence of buyers coming in. Outside of that, I'm not interested at all, right? Because I'm not trying to force it, especially when there's better assets that I can trade as well. I don't know why Euro Pound has like a soft spot in my heart. I really, really don't know why. But if I can see something build on this, then I will take a trade on this. Outside of that, everything else kind of low priority. USD CHF, I know we are bearish on this as of current. Now, the reason why I'm not really too keen on this is because we played out of a previous redistribution, the redistribution that caused this low to get broken, which confirmed the new redistribution. So when we came back into the 50%, we distributed out of it and obviously, made our way lower. Now, not only did we make our way lower, but we also came lower into a previous reaccumulation. So we're reacting out of supply, reacting out of demand. I'm just not interested personally, because I don't want to battle anything. I just want to trade what's clean and clear, So entered the USD, same thing. I'm more on the bearish side, but I'm not really seeing much signs of full bearishness come in right now. So I'm just not even interested. That and AUD USD, they're correlating assets, but they both just look trash to me. So I'm just not even interested. Now moving over to indices, and this will be where I'll wrap up, of course, right? So indices, from a fundamental perspective, money's flowing out of safe assets, i.e. the dollar. So money is going to be flowing into risky assets. Risky assets, obviously stocks, crypto, right? So if that's the case, and I know that, am I going to be really trying to take sells on this thing? No, I'm going to be more looking to take buys. So with that being the case, I know that we're bullish fundamentally. From a technical standpoint, we've accumulated, reaccumulated. We came into the previous reaccumulation in here, right? And then we ended up reacting from it. So on a lower time frame, obviously I came down into that, we reacted out of here and then we accumulated again. So not only did we accumulate, we ended up reaccumulating today. I think we confirmed it what time? Let me move this out of the way. We confirmed it at about 4 o'clock. So I'm just waiting for price to come back into the previous reaccumulation, show evidence of buyers coming in, and I'll be looking to take some buyers based off of that as well. So pretty simple for indices, all of them are looking relatively similar right now as well. S&P 500 is, looking exactly the same. I just want to see price come into this, give evidence of buyers coming into the market, and then obviously I'll be looking to take these buyers. Any buyers that I take from here, I'll probably try and hold them to all-time highs, which is obviously all the way up here. So if we can get that, that would be great. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at for the S&P 500. Now, did we even? Okay, nah, yeah. So I'm going to be looking at down here personally. I would like to see a shakeout, price come in, and obviously continue higher. Moving over to UK 100, yeah, like this just looks. It doesn't look bad. It's just we haven't had a manipulation of any lows. So usually when there is no manipulation, you should probably be waiting for a manipulation, because one is going to take place. And if you're trying to take an entry before manipulation ends up, happening, you'll be a part of the manipulation, of course, right? So that's why I don't trade, highs and lows, the typical way that a lot of us were probably taught in the beginning of our journeys, right? I know I was anyway. So I want to see price, given manipulation, come back into, premium, discounted pricing, if you will, not premium pricing. I want to see price come into discounted price and basically give evidence that buyers are coming in, and I'll be looking to take some buyers from in here. I hope that happens before we break all-time highs. That would be amazing. But obviously, if not, then I'll cry myself to sleep another time. Last but not least, we have Nasdaq, which looks very similar to the rest of them. I was looking to see if we could get an entry today actually, but price just didn't want to cooperate with your boy, So obviously on a higher time frame, we can see we've given a shakeout. So I just want to see price obviously come and take out these highs up here. Now, if I come down to the 15-minute very quickly, we can see we confirmed a reaccumulation over here. So not reaccumulation, we confirmed an accumulation down here. We just nice and clean. So we confirmed the accumulation down here. Now, once we did that, we then price came into the reaccumulation that caused this high to get broken and reacted from the demand zone as well. So it came into, came below the 50% and obviously just reacted straight, didn't give it entry, didn't do nothing. It just said, yeah, I'm out of here. So now I'm just waiting for price to come back into the previous reaccumulation, which will be this one here. Show me evidence that buyers are coming in, and I'll be looking to take something based off of that. And then I said last but not least, but obviously that wasn't the last one. The last one is the Nikkei, which is the top 225 stocks in Japan, which trades opposite to what obviously the dollar would, right? Because the same way we trade, the same way we understand that if money's flowing out of safe assets for the dollar, dollar government bonds, if it's flowing out of that, it means it's probably flowing into, the stock market or some cryptos, right? So the same ethos should be used when you're talking about any other country's, currency versus their stock market, So right now we're seeing the CPI, the inflation numbers for the Japanese yen coming down, or coming up rather, sorry, you can tell it's later now. Coming up, should I say. So that means that essentially if it continues that way, interest rates are going to follow, making Japanese yen bonds more attractive, which means money should be flowing out of their stock market, right? So if that's the case, I want to start to see, price start to come lower from this point, but I will only entertain that if we see evidence of sellers coming into the market. Now, that's the fundamental perspective, right, that I just spoke about earlier. Now, from a technical standpoint, if I just come out to a higher time frame very quickly, we were reaccumulating, we came into the previous reaccumulation, we reacted out of it. Now, obviously, what we did is after we had this reaccumulation, we had another one up here, right, where we had, I can just get my paintbrush, distribution price came in and obviously confirmed a new high. So when price broke beneath this, that was my distribution. Price obviously made a low, which was the start of my redistribution, where we had that buy to sell, if you will, and when we ended up breaking this low as well, literally by like a fingernail. I just checked it earlier. I think it was by like 0.04 points or something like that. That we broke below. So now that's just confirmed a new redistribution, meaning we've just come back into supply, i.e., above the 50%, and we're starting to see, if I come into the lower time frame, that we've broken beneath the previous reaccumulation, which is obviously this one here. We broke below that, right? So now we've come into the, into supply. So I want to see evidence of sellers coming in. If we do get that, then I'll be taking these sells to potentially target this low. And on a long-term target, obviously holding it down to this low if it can give as well. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a little bit of a longer one today, just because we had quite a few things to go through. But I hope this helps you guys. Hope this finds you well. You'll probably see this on Wednesday. Well, it's Wednesday now, so you'll probably see this at some point today. So appreciate you guys for watching. Hope this finds you well. If you have any questions, anything that you want me to touch on in further YouTube videos, just let me know in the comments. If you have any questions about working with myself personally, let me know in the comments, or find me on Instagram, whatever, and we can run it up, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you guys. Like I said, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and remember to keep your head on that bread. Peace.